Hey family, how are you doing? I hope you guys are having a good day so far. But if you're viewing this video towards the end of your day, I hope you won your day. I think that's going to be KRLA's new motto, right? So hey, devotionals are great, and I look forward to them in the morning, and then maybe I'll sneak in a couple in the afternoon or evening. But no, I'm not always good about that either. But devotionals are something that you hope to get some encouragements from, right? But you hope it will also challenge you. You may have to dig a little bit deeper to really understand what message is being conveyed beyond the obvious. And for me, this was one of them. While part of my devotion had a story of Corey Ten Boom's book, and while it drew me to the message, to reflect on the message, I wondered if there was a deeper message that God was trying to reveal to me personally. And sure enough, there was. The passage was from 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 1 through 10. I'm not going to read the passages, but I'd love for you guys to read it on your own after the video and maybe reflect back on maybe some of the things that I shared or however God is speaking to your heart regarding this passage. But it is about Paul's thorn in the flesh. And he starts by sharing a man's spiritual experience that could lead to boasting about it. After a while, you'll see that it's really about Paul himself, who at first speaks in the third person, but then later in chapter 7 transition into the first person. He does this because he's speaking to the Corinthian Christians who would generally glory in what Paul can do, and Paul would prefer to give all the glory to God. This then leads to Paul to share the thorn in his flesh that keeps him humble. He doesn't share what that thorn is, but he does share with the Corinthians the sufficiency of God's grace, that in our weakness is when we become stronger. And it is through our weakness that we can boast about God, who is the giver of all strength, right? So I just want to point out two simple truths. One that personally hits home for me, something I'm reminded of every day. The past couple of weeks, God has really been speaking to my heart about my pride. Not something I'm proud of, no pun intended, and I'm a bit ashamed to even admit it. But it's definitely something God has been working in me for years and continues to work in me. It really started in my early years and the way I lived my secular life. It fed into it even more. And I got into the corporate business at a young age, and my work and my position and the choices I made and even the people who I hung out with were the nutrients that made it grow. Back then, I never thought of it as more than just confidence. But after a while, it did turn into pride, and that was a big self-awareness for me. I was never arrogant, but now that I think of it, it's probably the most dangerous kind. Like Paul, I prayed and continue to pray that God removes it, but instead in his grace, he peels it away layer by layer. You could say this is the thorn in my side, in my flesh, but there's actually something else God has given me as the thorn in my flesh, which plays a role in the humility lesson God is revealing. You know, many commentators and teachers give their opinions on what exactly Paul's thorn in the flesh was, because there's just not enough information about it. It doesn't really go into specific. But one of my favorite commentator best puts it this way: God had a definite purpose in not revealing the exact nature of Paul's thorn. If we knew exactly what Paul's thorn was, then everybody who was afflicted, but not in exactly the same way, might doubt that Paul's experience was relevant for them. God wanted everyone with any kind of thorn in the flesh to be able to put themselves in Paul's shoes. One day, I hope I can share it with you, what the true thorn in my flesh. But for now, God continues to remind me that His grace is sufficient. The second point is actually the story of Corrie ten Boom's book. It's about, that's kind of a tongue twister, isn't it? Anyway, it's about a woman she met in Russia during this Cold War when Christians were being persecuted. The old woman was had a very bad case of multiple sclerosis. Her body was twisted in every direction. The index finger of her right hand was all she could control. That's it. But she moved that finger. She moved it across the typewriter keyboard all day and late into the night, translating the Bible and other Christians into Russian language. It took a long time to hit a key, but on it moved letter by letter through books of the Bible. When Corrie visited, she looked at this twisted skeletal frame of this woman, and compassion came over her. And she prayed, "Oh Lord, why don't you heal this poor woman?" The husband then saw how deeply Corrie was moved, and he said, "God has a purpose in her sickness. Every other Christian in the city is watched closely by the secret police, but because she has been so sick for so long, no one ever looks in on her. They leave us alone, and she is the only person who can translate undetected by the police." Then Corrie replied and said, "It's inaccurate to say that God worked despite her weakness. The truth is that He was glorified through her weakness in a powerful way. You would feel sorry for that woman just as I would. But the very thing we'd wish and pray away, the very thing apparently destroying her life, the prickly thorn causing so much pain, was a holy place that allowed a very weak woman to become a pillar of strength in God's kingdom." So I continue to pray for God to remove the thorn in my flesh, or I can allow for God to work through it so that He is ultimately glorified, and in the process I'm being transformed daily. I know this isn't your typical devotional encouragement, but however this comes through, know whatever thorn you may have, God is using it for His glory, and that His grace is always sufficient. And at the same time, remember the pain that comes with it, as Corrie would say, is the pillar of strength in God's kingdom. Thanks everyone, and have a blessed day. Bye.